We were only in the building for maybe 4.5 minutes, and the whole time we were just totally enveloped in flames. You'd look at something in front of you and it would just burst into a ball of flame, and you'd go left or right of it and that would burst into a ball of flame. It went through both of our minds that we weren't going to come out. It just became a case of sod it, I've got to get out of here. I'm not dying in a fire and I'm not dying in B&Q.
Even for seasoned, professional firefighters, being in the midst of a blaze is a frightening and life-threatening experience. But it's not just their bravery that gets them through. What really counts is teamwork, training and discipline, recognizing hazards and reacting to them, knowing what to do and doing it efficiently and calmly. And it's the same for workplace fire wardens. In factories, shops, offices, workshops and warehouses, fire wardens are a company's front line of fire safety. It's their teamwork, training and discipline on which lives depend when a fire breaks out. B&Q's Dover fire was devastating. Fortunately, no one died, but it was a close thing. 4 firefighters were injured and several members of staff badly traumatized. But amazingly, the store was up and running again in just 10 months. The company had had pretty rigorous fire prevention and protection measures in place anyway. But now they've tightened them up even further. Even though they're now installing sprinkler systems in all their stores, they still recognize the vital role of the fire warden. In Dover nowadays, that's John Baker. But a superstore is just one sort of workplace. No matter what the company, no matter how big or small, a fire warden's duties are essentially to assist their fire safety manager by carrying out an ongoing assessment of the risk of fire in their area, being vigilant, watching out for hazards as they go about their work and making sure they are removed or reported, knowing what actions to take in the event of a fire, being properly trained and prepared to tackle a fire safely in the early stages, ensuring the full and safe evacuation of their area in the event of fire. So, superstore or office, workshop or factory, employing hundreds of people or just a few, the basic requirements of fire safety are the same. Heather Aston has overall fire safety responsibility for a big manufacturing company. The variety of sites, factories, workshops, offices and laboratories, means a variety of fire risks. So Heather needs to be sure that the company fire wardens, like June and Keith here, are regularly taken through their paces. Security has an important part to play. Amazingly, 40% of workplace fires are started maliciously. That terrible fire at B&Q was very probably arson. Started with a match, and we've seen how devastating that was. So don't give the arsonist a chance. Even if the premises are under constant surveillance, make sure that waste bins and skips are well away from buildings and secure.
Now, as you'll remember from the fire risk assessment, this is the highly flammable liquid store.
Flammable liquid should be properly stored out of harm's way. As the flammable liquid store is in Keith's area, he needs to be aware that special precautions have to be taken by staff who work there. As they go about their normal work, well-trained wardens keep an eye out for the sort of things that could cause a fire. So, for instance, they should check that someone doing hot work has a permit authorizing the task in that location. And, of course, if it's an outside contractor, they should have been made aware of the escape routes and evacuation procedures. Other problems wardens might spot as they go about their business include missing fire extinguishers, wedged open fire doors, people smoking where they're not supposed to, combustible materials placed dangerously close to sources of heat, a frequently ignored problem wherever you work, overloaded electrical adapters, and damaged electrical fittings and cables. Even though the lab here has been completely refurbished with plenty of sockets, Keith, who's responsible for this area, still needs to be vigilant.
It's important to look at the condition of equipment just to make sure it's still operating okay. Kind of things we look for.
Fire exits must not be obstructed. A situation like this could be the death of someone. As they go about their everyday work, the wardens can check too that escape routes are safe to use for everyone, including people with disabilities. Now, if the wardens do their job properly, hazards won't develop.
And of course, every new person in the company should have fire safety training, ideally on the day that they join. Of course, they should know what to do.
But if something misses their scrutiny, then there is every chance that the unthinkable would happen. And that's where the second part of the warden's job comes in. Knowing what to do if a fire does break out, and doing it calmly and efficiently. Everyone must know how to raise the alarm if there's a fire. Different companies have different rules. It requires activating the alarm and may also involve a phone call to the switchboard. To be able to evacuate quickly and safely, people need to know where the escape routes and assembly points are. They must be clearly signed, and everyone should be familiar with them. And of course, they shouldn't need to be reminded not to use the lift if the alarm sounds. If the fire is in its early stages, it could be tackled by a member of staff, but only if it is safe to do so. Staff should have practical training in the use of fire extinguishers. They need to know how to recognize the various types and which to use in particular circumstances. The fire drill is a vital part of training for all staff, including fire wardens. As the wardens for this building, June and Keith have to make sure that the evacuation procedure is followed correctly.
Hello, switchboard.
I'm just going to set off the alarms. Don't call the fire brigade.
Different places have different procedures, but here, when it's a drill, the warden warns the switchboard before raising the alarm. While the staff leave the building by the nearest available exit and make their way to the assembly point, the wardens make a quick but thorough check of their individual areas of responsibility. They have to satisfy themselves that no one is left in their part of the building, staff or visitors. So they check not just the offices and other working areas, but walk-in cupboards and toilets as well.
Anyone here?
They have to make sure too that any heat-generating equipment is turned off, and if there's time, that doors and windows are closed. When they're sure everyone's out, the wardens go to their assembly points, taking the staff list for their area so they can carry out a roll call. The assembly point should be a place of complete safety situated well away from the building. Once they've done their roll call, they report the result to the fire safety manager, and then they'll be able to help give information to the fire brigade. In most places, the fire safety manager and fire wardens ensure that all staff know that a drill is being planned, with a memo, or a prominently displayed notice like this. By the way, you should carry out at least one, but preferably 2 drills every year. The alarm should be tested weekly from call points in rotation. The fire drill is very important, so it's worth recapping. The fire wardens should check all parts of their designated areas to make sure everyone has escaped. If time permits, it's a good idea to switch off heat-generating equipment and close the doors and windows as you go. Where appropriate, make sure everyone's accounted for at the assembly points with a roll call. Of course, the return of people to the premises will depend on the situation. If it's following a fire drill, it can happen as soon as all the staff and visitors have been accounted for at the assembly point. But in the event of a real fire, they'd obviously have to wait, not only until the fire is out, but also until the premises have been declared safe by a fire brigade officer, which could take some time. If it's been a serious fire causing lots of damage, reference will have to be made to the company's emergency plan for the appropriate course of action. B&Q's Dover fire was truly devastating, but the store's reopening was celebrated only 10 months after the event. For some, their happy faces on that day mask a terror they can never forget.
Well, within seconds, the place was full of flames, and I wouldn't want to go through it again.
That's why the employees and the company are determined that such a horror should never happen again. And the fire wardens play their part in fire protection by carrying out an ongoing assessment of the risk of fire in their area, being vigilant, watching out for hazards as they go about their work and making sure they are removed or reported. Knowing what actions to take in the event of a fire. Being properly trained and prepared to tackle a fire safely in the early stages. Ensuring the full and safe evacuation of their area in the event of fire.